There's websites that make it pretty easy to track Tesla's new existing inventory of vehicles, and we noticed that Model Y existing inventory was reaching an all-time high right before the massive price cuts we got earlier in the month. And we're of course seeing a big decline in inventory since those price cuts were made, but we're also seeing an increase in Model 3 inventory specifically after that first wave of orders came in. Obviously, there was a lot of shell shock when Tesla basically bombed legacy auto and cut prices as much as they did, but I think the long-term realization and long-term outcome of these price cuts is that the Model Y is a pretty frickin' good deal with that federal tax credit and all of the storage space and great range, great charging speed. Crossovers in general just tend to sell way better than sedans. I don't really understand why. Personally, I think sedans are super underrated and I love my Model 3, but we cannot deny that there has been a pretty decent increase of Model 3 existing inventory. So the question is now remaining, does the Model 3 and Model Y start too close to the same price, and could that prevent a lot of people from wanting to go with the Model 3? Because clearly, you know, as much as I love it, I'm willing to admit the Model Y is a more functional vehicle. It's got more storage space, it's got a higher ride height, which makes it easier to get in, it's a hatchback design. People love their hatchbacks, and even if Tesla brought back the dual motor long range Model 3, which there seems to be a lot in inventory, but they still don't let you order a custom one from the configurator. I still don't know why, but even if they brought that Model 3 back, it's really only going to be like $3,000 cheaper than the Model Y dual motor long range, so I can understand why the desirability of the Model 3 may have gone down a lot because the price is so much closer to the Model Y now. So this is a good situation for us consumers to be in, a bit more of an annoyance for Tesla as a company, because my guess is that because the Model 3 at this point is not using single piece castings and is not using a structural battery pack, doesn't really cost that much less to build than the Model Y does, because there's a lot of intricate parts going into that underbody and a lot of robots necessary and a lot of steps involved with manufacturing the Model 3. So either they build up a huge amount of inventory now, shut down the assembly lines and start updating it with single piece castings, maybe structural battery pack, and they can use the existing inventory to cover demand while that assembly line is being updated. Or of course there's a few more outcomes that could happen, and I don't have sources. I'm not trying to tell you I'm a genie and I know what's going to happen in the future, but technically if Tesla does want to get their inventory off of their factory lots, they could drop prices even more for the Model 3, particularly when that $7,500 tax credit no longer qualifies come March 1st. Then we might see less demand coming in even more so, and maybe Tesla could drop prices further to below $40,000 for the rear-wheel drive and come closer to that originally promised $35,000 Model 3, which they got rid of years ago. So that of course would be really awesome, but there's some other approaches that may allow Tesla to keep prices the same and demand levers that they can pull at any time, like the ones we saw last year. For example, if lots of people are buying the Model Y and not that many people are buying the Model 3, you could offer free supercharging for a certain number of miles. You could say anybody that takes delivery of a Model 3 for the next couple months gets 10,000 or 5,000 or 2,000 miles of free supercharging. That definitely can make people feel, oh, maybe I should consider getting a Model 3 instead of a Y, but definitely a short-term perk. Another long-term perk may be offering premium connectivity for more extended periods for the Model 3 that you don't offer for the Model Y. And another great solution that I still haven't seen Tesla bring back even with these lower prices is revamping the referral program. And I'm not just saying this for selfish reasons, but yes, the referral program definitely got a lot of content creators both on TikTok or YouTube to try to get talking about Teslas, because if you could refer people to buying Teslas using your code, the person who used your code got free supercharging miles, and now with the redesigned program you get referral credits which you can use towards Tesla accessories, Tesla merch, or even enhanced autopilot and full self-driving. You can put credits towards that. So if you want kind of free marketing from influencers, revamping the referral program might help a lot. And right now all that's in the referral program is solar panels and solar roofs, but if they added back the Model 3 and maybe not the Model Y, that could encourage a lot of people to start plugging the Model 3 harder and harder and make it seem like a much better deal than the Model Y, even though sure, it has a lot of limitations compared to the crossover. So Reuters for a while has still been talking about the refreshed Model 3, but not so much as of lately, and there's definitely been a big push for people buying vehicles before the tax credit changes in March. So my hope hope is that Tesla decides to update the Model 3 with single piece castings. That way we can actually see prices come lower, because as cool as it would be to have more free supercharging or premium connectivity or referral credits, I still don't think any of those things are actually as tangible or as appreciated as just straight up cash savings. That's what you guys really want, right? We really just want Model 3 prices to go down. But there's still a few more reconfigurations that Tesla may have in the future that might start to make sense, right? Because there may be some roadblocks preventing the Model 3 from just switching over to structural battery pack or single piece castings. Like, for example, Hydra seems to be supplying all of Tesla's Giga presses, and they seem pretty preoccupied right now. You know, they just shipped the 9,000 ton Giga press to Giga Texas for the Cybertruck. Now they have another 9,000 ton Giga press that's going to Asia. We still don't really know what for. It could be for Model 3 single piece castings or a theoretical third generation platform vehicle that's even cheaper than the Model 3. But Hydra seems pretty busy, so let's say, for the sake of the example, Tesla can't update the Model 3 line at Fremont right now. They just are building Giga presses as fast as they can, and there's no time to update the Model 3 because Hydra's all booked up. So another scenario is Tesla could start compromising a bit on more higher end parts of the Model 3. That way they can profitably sell it for a lot cheaper than what they are right now. And I've seen some people suggesting this, and it's starting to make a lot of sense in my head, because as you guys know, I made a recent video about range being overrated, and currently, you know, a lot of people are buying the Model Y long range. 330 miles and supercharging access, that's good enough for a ton of people. So making a dual motor Model 3 with 358 miles of range, as cool as that vehicle is, if not enough people are buying it, it might make more sense to reduce the size of the battery pack, have a lower range option, but you can sell that for a lot less because it requires fewer cells per vehicle. I know, there's those range kings out there that are just like, no, nothing can ever get a range reduction until all electric vehicles on the road have 600 miles of range. I get it, you know, you're just a diehard range fan because you live in the middle of the nowhere and you are perpetually towing 15,000 pounds at 80 miles an hour in negative 40 degrees Celsius. I know, you think your use case is very common, but ultimately we gotta look at things from the perspective of the company, because once you can start to understand where they're coming from, you can start to better anticipate what they're going to price their vehicles at or what their next move is going to be. So maybe if Tesla revives the configurator with the Model 3 long range, but this updated 2023 variant has a smaller battery pack and is only capable of going 315 or 320 miles on a charge, that one with fewer cells could maybe sell for closer to $45,000. And, you know, I think it would still check that box in a lot of EV buyers' heads, because based on the discussions I've had with people that are thinking about buying electric, something clicks when you hear over 300 mile range. And even though it's a nickel-based battery pack and you're not going to be charging to 100%, and with degradation you probably won't maintain over 300 miles of range over the life of the vehicle, still, just knowing that you're buying an EV with over 300 miles of range plus supercharging access with 250 kilowatts, something switches in their head and they go, okay, yep, that's enough range for me, I can live with that. And in that scenario, I think sales may still increase even if the range isn't as good as it was before. And same thing for the lithium iron phosphate vehicles. You know, I talked about how you can always wait for a better Model 3 around the corner, but there's at the same time things being taken out for the sake of manufacturing efficiency. That's how you end up with cheaper vehicles like we have now, but notice none of them have park assist or ultrasonic sensors. So you get a better deal, but you also leave out some things. Similarly, I could see Tesla start shipping lithium iron phosphate battery packs that aren't as big, and maybe Tesla goes back to a 250 mile range because they go, well, you get to charge it to 100% and the cycle life is really high, so maybe we can just get by with 250 miles of range and then sell that vehicle for sub $40,000, opposed to right now it costs $43,000. And hopefully, maybe in time, thanks to CATL ramping up more lithium iron manganese phosphate battery packs, they could even switch the long range Model 3 over to a higher energy density version of LFP, and that way hopefully it can still have dual motor all-wheel drive. I would love it if they brought back the long range rear-wheel drive, but I just don't think the powertrain is really that expensive ultimately. But if you could get an iron-based battery pack a little over 300 miles, even if it's not much, even if we're talking about LFMP being like 310 mile range with a dual motor powertrain, that would probably cost way less than what they're currently paying for the Model 3 long range, because that battery pack requires cobalt and nickel, and they're probably shipping like 80 kilowatt hour battery packs with every one of those Model 3s, whereas I think you could probably go back to like a 70 kilowatt hour battery pack, and if that's 70 kilowatt hours just using manganese and iron instead of nickel and cobalt, you could probably charge closer to like $46,000, $45,000 for that vehicle. And that might be the sweet spot that makes a lot of sense for the Model 3, because now you're not saving $3,000 by going with a Model 3 instead of a Y. You're saving like $8,000, which might be just that extra push the Model 3 needs to find the demand. You know, Elon said in the past that they don't want any of their electric vehicles really going below the 250 mile range mark, because that's when people are just too nervous. But I would argue with the capability of supercharging and the reliability of that network and the simplicity of plugging in, and the fact that there's people like me that, you know, we do a decent amount of driving. I'm doing shuttle runs to the airport and I'm visiting friends and family members in nearby towns, but I still have not supercharged my car in like over a month now, just because I haven't done really any intensive road trips. So are there any of you out there that would be willing to put up with like a LFP battery pack so you can still charge it to 100%, but maybe 240 or 230 mile range if that meant the price was closer to like $35,000 or less? Personally, I think still a lot of people would go for it, and I know Elon in Tesla doesn't want to go that low, but for people that don't live in the winter climates or aren't road tripping all that much, I bet there's a decent number of people that could live with range that low if it meant that the price was that low. But feel free to disagree with me in the comments below. How do you think Tesla should handle this? Should it be including more premium features to justify that price, or taking away existing features to lower the price? All those thoughts, type them down in the comments below, and thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.